Welcome to episode 3 of Creatively Speaking with your host, Lawrence Mayfield. Today I have another guest I've invited on the show. He is a shredder, a riffer, a rocker, but he's also notably a friend of mine. And I'm going to have him kind of just go over the projects and acts that he's associated with. What do you go by?
My name is Joshua Back. I play in an alternative rock band called Cigarette Trees. And then I guess I do kind of solo acoustic, singer-songwriter sort of stuff. But yeah, that's the two things that I'm doing.
Now, there's like two general sections I'm going to do on the show. One is like about your band from a creative standpoint, and then like you as a solo writer.
Okay.
But the main thing is the band, because like I know you are in a band. You said Cigarette Trees, and I was just kind of wondering how those two things differ. Do you write songs with the band in mind, or do you like when you write and sit down and write them on your own? Do you like just that'd be cool if I had the drums on there, or somebody did something, or are you just like, this is an idea I had, and whatever happens with it, whatever happens.
Yeah, it kind of, I guess, whatever, I start with an idea, and I would say most of the stuff that I'm writing does turn into a Cigarette Trees song. So I am thinking about other instruments, but it usually just starts with a, vocal and guitar. But I will say I have written some stuff recently that doesn't sound good for the band, and so I've kind of thought about what I'm going to do with it and kind of keep it more of a solo acoustic and vocal thing. But yeah, I've played some stuff to the guys in the band, and they're just kind of like, no, that doesn't fit our sound. And I'm like, you're right. So now I get to use this as like a solo acoustic thing. But when I am writing, I guess it just kind of like what you said, like I'm kind of seeing what's going on with the vocal and guitar and then what we can do with it. I am thinking about other instruments, but sometimes it doesn't work out that way. So just whatever it ends up being.
And do you have like a preference for one or the other, or is it like when you guys sit in the room, are you like, because like you said, you had an idea, but is it most of the times that you're building on an idea that you guys present, or is it you make it happen right there and then, and it's like a new idea that comes together?
Most of the time, I think that I've brought in stuff. So I've written stuff at home, guitar and vocals or whatever, or a riff, and I'll just take it to the band and we'll kind of go from there. Sometimes it's fully like thought out stuff that I've done. I've got a verse, chorus, whatever. Sometimes it's just a riff and we just kind of jam on it and work out some bits and pieces and see what comes from it. And there's definitely stuff we've got right now where it's just riffs and music and no vocals or anything. But yeah, I guess it just depends. I would say most of our stuff has been like me bringing almost fully written material and then hashing out the different instruments and stuff with the rest of the band.
And when you're in a band, do you think that like there's a need to be the guy that like organizes it? Is there like a leader of the band concept? Is everybody playing a role in like organizing it, or is it you feel like you have to at times like reel everybody in, like, all right guys, like we're gonna get in the studio, we gotta get this song done, we gotta actually like organize this properly so that we can get things done.
Right. It's funny. That's a good question. I think definitely in a band setting, you got to have somebody that's taking the lead, and I think it can kind of bounce around depending on the song or what you guys are trying to do. But honestly, when me and Zach, the drummer, me and him started the band, and then we had a bass player through a mutual friend. His name was Evan. But a lot of this stuff was me bringing riffs and just already written songs to Zach, and then he's putting drums to it, and we're kind of going from there. So a lot of it is like originating from my original ideas. So we brought Evan in, and I love Evan to death. He's no longer the bass player. He had other stuff going on, so he had to quit. But he made the comment one day where we'd show up to practice, and we weren't getting a lot done. And he was just like, man, we've got to have a leader in the band, and I've been in plenty of bands, and if you don't have somebody kind of reining everybody in, then it's chaotic and nothing gets done. And he was right. We were not getting a lot done, and I probably I was not stepping up as a leader in the band, which he was like, I think you should do it. These are your songs, which he's got a good point. And so I kind of had to start doing that a little more. So I do think that you need somebody to kind of do it. But there's also been times when Evan was still in the band, he had a song and he was like, okay, I want it to sound like this. And so he was kind of taking that lead role for that.
Right. I kind of expected that there was like an element there. And like, I guess if there is somebody that has to take the helm, I mean, it makes sense that it's the vocalist a lot of times because, like you said, like you guys are in charge of writing the lyrics and all that jazz. And so it is important to have somebody kind of get it organized, like you said. Like when you talk about riffs and stuff, just out of curiosity, I mean, like, what makes a good riff? Because I know your band is like Cigarette Trees. I didn't expect it to be as riff it is very catchy riffs. That's like an emphasis in your guys' thing.
I have no idea because I feel like I've taken riffs to the band before, to Zach and Evan at the time, and I've played it for them, and they've been like, it's okay, whatever, we can jam on that. And I was like so excited about it. I was like, dude, check this riff out. And they're just like, okay, yeah, it sounds cool. And then there's been times where I've like just played a random riff that I had forever, not really thinking anything of it. And they're like, dude, when? Where did you get this riff? And I'm like, I don't know. I've just kind of been sitting on it. They're like, we got to turn this one into a song, It's just, who knows, man. Catchy riffs, I don't know. I have no idea. I guess a lot of times what inspires riffs is if I'm learning like a new song from somebody I enjoy. I feel like there's always something that spins out of that. So I'll get some new idea from, a Manchester Orchestra song or a Radiohead song. And if I'm learning one of their riffs, then it kind of spins out of that and could be inspiration. But really, I have no idea. I have no idea what I'm doing.
That's a good place to be sometimes. That's when the unknown happens. But that's an interesting thing, though, because, like, again, in the band, there's that element of, like, people are able to, collaborate and, like, if you present an idea, it's like, no. And then it's sometimes like, holy shit, Yeah. And so, like, I guess it does help to be in that environment as opposed to, like, on your own, because I feel like that's why I'm so intrigued by the band creative process, because I'm a solo artist. So I'm, like, not able to really necessarily, like, always refer to other people as a gauge of, like, how this is coming across. And you're able to do that. So that is a kind of important resource. Do you see it like that, or that, that you value their, like, opinions, or you're like, what are you talking about? That was a cool riff. Or do you feel like that is valid a lot of times when they give you their reactions?
Yeah, for sure. No, I think it's great. I think it's good to have other people tell you, their opinion on stuff, even if it's not somebody in the band. So if you, like what you said, you're a solo artist, and yeah, you can kind of get in your head about stuff and like, I don't know, I kind of like that. Does that sound good? And but you can always let other people hear it and be like, because they're going to tell you, man. Like, especially if it's like somebody in your family that doesn't care to shoot it straight with you, or one of your good buddies, like, oh man, that sounds like crap. You don't want to use that. But it's good to get outside ears on it. But it's definitely good in a band context because you already have people in the band that can give you that perspective right then and there. But also, I think it's important to let other people hear it. So, like, we've let people, Zach's brother listens to our stuff, and I've had friends listen to like stuff we're working on, and we get really good feedback, because I feel like sometimes you, as either a solo artist or in the band, you're too close to it, and you might think it's something that it's not. So getting outside opinions is important, especially people that aren't musicians too. You know what I mean? Because you're approaching it from a musician standpoint, and they're just a listener. They're going to give it to you, some valuable information on whether they would listen to it or not, just as a listener.
That's kind of like jumping to a thought I had later on, but it is something that I want to touch back on, the audience thing.
Sure.
That is like a major, I don't know, thought I have just in general with people that are creative and like how they view an audience. But I wanted to kind of like touch on a different topic. about image and like being a performer. Is it important, do you think, like to have a good sort of presentation of that, or can you just show up and like, you're a regular average Joe Schmo clothes or and not have any flash? I mean, how important is the image to the entertainer and the audience, do you think?
My thoughts on it, I guess it depends on what you're trying to do. Because I can think about like bands that I really enjoy, and some of them do have like a pretty clear image behind them. But then you listen to like all these rock and hard rock and metal bands, and if you go look at some of the Cigarette Trees, like our promo shots that we did, they just look like a normal, rock band picture. And I'm like, it's cool. It looks really professional. But also I think it kind of suits us, I guess, because we're not trying to do anything flashy in terms of appearance. I would like the music to kind of speak for itself, but I don't know. I think it's important depending on the music you're doing and what you're trying to do. But again, I don't have any idea.
Emo scene and all that stuff is that you get to just look like an average dude,
Just a normal guy.
just play your heart out,
Right.
like I guess it's like I guess image and stuff like that is more important for like maybe pop bands and stuff like that. And I get, there's I like to think of it as like there's eccentric artists out there that are just like, they do get up, they do a whole dress up thing, and they have this gimmick kind of thing going on. And I guess it's not necessarily always prominent in rock bands. Rock bands are more, we're just going to rock out, dude.
Sure.
We're not going to be like fancy with it. We're just going to.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. But then you got like Guar. Look at, that's their whole thing, right? Is dressing up like crazy stuff, or even Slipknot, and I mean Ghost. I love Ghost, and they all wear mask and whole get up, and keep their identities. Nobody knows who they are except the singer, apparently. I don't know.
Yeah, Guar is just fun. I guess like having a little bit like a Rammstein or something, right? Like it's more fun, I guess, for the audience to be engaged. Oh my God, he's got a whole get up, and it's part of the performance. So
I would say it's a little freeing too. Like if you're in a band and you're wearing a mask and nobody, well, I mean, in like Ghost's instance, nobody knows who you are. You can kind of get up there and maybe be a little bit more comfortable if you're uncomfortable being on stage and stuff. I don't know. It's interesting.
While we're on the band thing, one more thing, because we're talking about image, I guess. Did you have like a vision for the band, or like I guess like a goal in mind when you first set out with the band? I mean, how old is it, and like what was your idea, and where is it now versus what you thought it would be? I know that's a lot of like it's like triple.
Did you say how old?
How old is that band?
So Cigarette Trees, I think me and Zach started playing together like 3 years ago, something like that. But we didn't really release any music or play any shows under that name until 2023. Yeah, the vision I had when I was bringing music in, yeah, it's definitely changed since we've been working on material and stuff. But my vision, I guess, I'm a big Radiohead fan, and I was always like, I don't want this to get too heavy. I don't want to be a metal band. I definitely want to be on the heavier side sometimes with like just rock. But I kind of had that vision where I wanted it to sound more, I guess, like my influences. But then once we started jamming, Zach, he's definitely more of a kind of heavier drummer. He really enjoys like the metal bands and double kick, pedal, which is great. I enjoy that stuff too. Just initially, I didn't envision a lot of that going on, but over time, we've kind of changed into that a little bit, which is fine. In the beginning, I was kind of trying to steer away from it, but I think it's good because we're all bringing our influences in. And so we have gotten heavier over time, which I'm fine with because I feel like sometimes my riffs that I bring into practice, they can get a little heavy. But we still got stuff too that's a little bit more softer, and we can do both. I always look at like Manchester Orchestra, and so they've got albums where they were really heavy, And then they've got albums where they kind of dialed it back, and it's much softer. The songs are slower, and there's a lot of other different like instruments going on other than just distorted guitars. But yeah, it's changed. And Zach actually mentioned that recently. We're jamming through some new material, and he's like, just think about the stuff we were playing in the beginning, and now think about this stuff. I'm like, yeah, man, it's getting heavier. It's getting heavier. But that's okay. It's fine. It's working out, and we're all getting to bring our influences to the table on these songs, and so I think it's better to do that.
Again, like it's really cool to have that just everybody. It's an organic thing. It just seems like you guys are all collectively creating this thing, and it's like it's whatever because I mean, like you said, Zach has like a different influence than you do. I mean, you may like have had conversations where, oh yeah, I listen to that too, but then there's different alignments of like, and that stuff will come together in some interesting like way maybe, and that's just
Sure.
And so you're saying it's like a relatively new band. It's like 2023, right?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, I mean, there's so much room for like development and growth there. Like, I mean, you got lineup changes. I'm sure that will happen, and have happened, right?
Already happened.
Like you said, like Evans. I've never met that guy, but yeah, I mean, he was previous bassist, and he maybe had some other things to add, or
He did. We started covering songs that I probably would have never even considered. He was more of like a punk bassist, so he played in a bunch of punk bands. And so he was like, yeah, why don't we do a Green Day song? And I was like, yeah, let's do it. I didn't even think about that. And then also, oh, we should do like a Misfits song. And I'm like, interesting. I'm not super versed in their catalog, but I know who they are and I know some of their big songs. And he's like, yeah, let's do this one. And so we play some of those songs now, and it's like his influence kind of he's gone, but he left his mark because we still kind of incorporate some of that stuff, and it changed the sound a little bit.
How have you been able to keep the band together? How does that survive? I mean, it's your concept initially, right? But then who do you know is going to be like pretty much there to like see the growth and like evolution of the band going forward? Do you think like is everybody pretty committed to the idea right now and wanting to see where it goes? Or
yeah, I would. Well, me and Zach are kind of the two initial people that got together, so it's been constant with me and him. Which we've only had one other bassist, and that was Evan, and now we got Luis. But yeah, keeping everybody together and staying on track. I think we try to practice at least once a week. We stay pretty consistent with that, and it's usually the same day, same time frame. And so we all kind of know that coming into it. And that was kind of a discussion I think Zach had with Luis. He's the one that brought Luis in. He knew him from work. So we kind of have that, everybody's on the same page with that. But yeah, man, I don't know. I'd say, even moving forward right now, it feels like everybody's kind of on the same page and in the same boat. But it can be a task sometimes to get everybody, I mean, somebody said one time, it's like when you're in a band, it's like you're dating, you have like 4 girlfriends. You got to keep them all happy. So it can kind of feel like that sometimes. Everybody's kind of got their own schedule, and we all work full time, and nobody does music full time for a living. So it's all outside of our day-to-day jobs and everything. So yeah, man, I don't know. We're doing it right now, and we're going to keep going and see where we end up with it.
And like the working at it, and constantly, having I guess, agreed upon time frame when you guys can get together, just, I guess it does help that there's results from it, like that you guys are going to performances and seeing that, that return on the investment, as it were, to where like, you got an audience and they're like this is fucking sick, this is tight. You guys are, I saw the one at Green Lantern, you guys were tight as fuck. Yeah, I mean, it was a fun time. I think the audience was really engaged, and I think that's probably the reward, I would imagine, right? Is like you guys doing that consistently and then seeing that payoff kind of in a way.
Yeah, man. Having scheduled shows really helps. And then recording, too, is also something that keeps everybody, well, it keeps me on my toes and keeps me wanting to continue doing this is like we can book shows and play shows to people, and then we can record new material. So it's a constant creative process. It's getting better and seeing those results. But yeah, there's times when we don't have any gigs lined up and we still have practice, and those can be, sometimes it feels like, what are we doing? You know, like, are we working towards anything here? And it's like, well, maybe we should just jam through new material or something new. So that's good opportunities for that. But having a, a deadline is important for me. I live and die by deadlines. So it definitely helps in the band context too.
You mentioning like that is kind of jumping ahead to another question I have, but I guess we could just throw it in there because like the promotion of like content and getting gigs and stuff like that. I mean, it's is everybody involved in that promotional aspect? Is it do you have to carry the weight of that, or do you feel like everybody's kind of like, hey, I talked to some guys, maybe we can get some gigs there? Is it everybody kind of trying to do that in a band, or is it usually fall on one person?
I think that we've all kind of tried to do that. So we're all kind of, we'll get together and think about what we need to do. But I usually control a lot of the social media. So a lot of times I'm messaging people on there just from our band accounts or reaching out to somebody. So I have reached out to a lot of people, but I mean, still Zach, he knows a lot of people around Lexington. He used to be a bartender, so he's got a lot of contacts, and he's played in bands here. So he's definitely reached out and got us gigs, and pretty much everybody is trying to do it. I think it's a group effort. If you leave it to one person, it can be overwhelming. But yeah, it's a grind, man. I think either way you look at it, you got to go and talk to people about booking gigs and networking and stuff. It's a never-ending cycle of that.
In your mind, like what would be ideal versus what is the reality right now, like as far as being able to practice and play gigs? I mean, what would you want going forward?
Well, I think that going forward, booking gigs every year, like having a pretty good amount of gigs in kind of the Lexington and the surrounding areas would be ideal. And continue to practice once a week where we can, hone our material and get better at it and write new material that's kind of what we're doing. That's kind of what we're doing right now. And I think that works for everybody's schedule, considering we're all busy adults and stuff. So, but ideally just continuously releasing new material and just playing gigs regularly is kind of where we're at. And that's what I want to do moving forward. And if we don't do anything other than that for the next 10 years, I'm good with that. I'm good with us staying in this area. I know everybody has like aspirations if you're in a rock band, like, oh, we're going to go on tour and we're going to go across the United States, blah, blah, blah. That would be great. I think that's something to aspire to, but I'd like to keep my expectations realistic, and just even getting a local following here or just continuing to have gigs is enough for me, and continuing to write. That's really what's important.
Right. And I mean, are you opening for people? Because you're usually, I don't know how the whole lineup happened with, I know Kyle, but I don't know the other guys. I mean, is there an importance of like the networking aspect of it? I mean, I guess what I'm asking is like, if you are booking shows on your own, is it harder, or do you think you need like a lineup, or do you need to like jump on a roster with somebody to get an audience or get an opportunity?
From what I've seen, or what we've been doing recently, and again, I mean, we're still pretty new at all this stuff in like the local Lexington scene, is a lot of places will want, if you can bring a full lineup, which is kind of what we did at Green Lantern. I reached out. I'd met their booking guy before, and I reached out and said, hey, we've got a full lineup of bands. We're available these dates. Do you have anything available? Are you interested in booking us? We've played here and there, and this is the style of music. And most places seem to be more receptive to that than kind of reaching out and being like, hey, we're trying to book a show. If you have a full lineup already, then great. But also, letting them know, hey, if you got a band coming in that needs an opener, there's you can do that as well, which I've also done. Probably the bigger venues, like if you have somebody coming through to Manchester Music Hall that needs an opener, and you can email them and be like, hey, we're a rock band local. If you need an opener, hey, we're here. So let us know. Haven't had any luck doing that yet. Also, I think it's more you got to build up a following and kind of network, man. Just constantly meeting new people and connecting with other like-minded bands or just similar bands, which we've also been doing recently, and hopefully we can get some gigs set up with other rock bands in Lexington.
So it is kind of a numbers game.
I think at this point it is. If you're pretty new, you're probably just doing just firing out emails and meeting new people. That's kind of what we've been doing. But I don't know. I'm not an expert. We're just going with it and trying to figure it out as we go. So
I mean, that's the era we live in. It's a DIY scenario, you know? I mean, we're all kind of figuring out, especially the social media aspect of it. I mean, there's a side note I have here, which is that, you know, you're very I really commend the fact that you're super consistent with the open mics, and you're very participatory. You know, you're always promoting people's stuff by taking a little snippet video and being like, hey, check this. You're adding people, you know, and it's just such an appreciative community aspect. And I wish there was a lot more of that. The social media is a big part of it. So you doing that helps maybe somebody, I don't know, just get that much more, exposure. So, but I mean, what do you think about the social media aspect? I mean, is there good? I mean, I guess what do you think? I mean, what do you think it has some good developments for our era, or is it just all negatives?
I think it's good because I feel like it has leveled the playing field for artists and musicians and anybody, creative businesses, anything really. It's leveled the playing field because you can now build up your own following on social. You don't have to go through these gatekeepers. Like, you don't have to go to Nashville anymore. You don't have to go to LA or New York or wherever, because you can build up a following on social media. And there's been plenty people over the years now that have done this, and they're getting signed by record labels. They're getting picked up by, other bands and going on tour with them just because they have a following on social media. However, I feel like the downside of that is it's another thing that creatives have to worry about and constantly have to keep pushing out content, which can be a grind. And I try to do it, and it's still, there's days I don't want to put anything out there, and I don't. And there's other people that are just constantly doing material, different content day in and day out, which is kind of what you have to do. But I don't know. I kind of have a love-hate relationship with it. Sometimes I'm excited about making new content for social, and sometimes I'm not. But again, I don't have a significant following, so I take what I say with a grain of salt. I'll say it again during this. I don't know what I'm doing.
Oh man, I mean, we're all just kind of floating on the rock, bro. But I think there is a burnout aspect, like you're saying. I think that's kind of interesting that you mentioned that, because I feel like that's why I kind of have that same share. I think it's shared, Josh. I think there's a lot of people in music and creativity that feel the burnout.
Yeah.
You don't. I feel like the pressure of having to post every, whatever is just, I don't know. It takes away from the heart of it, in some ways.
Sure.
So it's probably best to be aware of that, at least. And that's half the battle, probably, in my opinion. Since we're talking kind of about promotion of local musicians and social media stuff and everything, what do you think about the local Lexington, Kentucky scene? Is there any good, bad, and ugly aspects?
Yeah, the Lexington scene, dude. It's dominated. I feel like it's dominated by Americana and country, which makes sense. This is Kentucky. And it's unfortunate because if you have rock bands like one I'm in, or solo artists that don't really fall into that category, or like bluegrass or folk, that's more prominent around here, then I feel like the opportunities for gigging and booking shows and stuff is limited. It's not to say that there aren't those bands here. There's definitely plenty of rock bands and metal bands, and there are venues that book that type of music. it's just, yeah, if you want to play a ton of shows and that's all you wanted to do in Lexington, then you're going to honky tonk it. You're going to be playing all the honky tonk stuff. You know, you're going to be playing country and covering all these newer artists and the classic country stuff and any, of course, now Tyler Childers. You can't go into a bar in Lexington without hearing somebody play one of his songs, which I'm not downplaying that. I mean, I think that's great. I love Tyler Childers. I'm a fan of his and have been since pretty early on. But the scene is more, I feel like it's better for those styles of music than it is for rock. But there are rock bands here. I think we can make it grow. And I feel like I keep getting introduced to more and more people that are in those types of bands and wanting to book shows. So I think it's growing. I hope it's growing. But either way, that's kind of how I feel about it. What's your experience with it?
Yeah, I guess that's pretty accurate. I mean, it's not unfortunate. It's just the nature of things, right? I mean, there's always trends. There's trendsetters, Childers, like, right? So like everybody follows that, and it's not to be like, super artsy about it. Like, oh, I'm doing something that's nobody understands. It's like something unique. But I think that everybody, the people that do their own thing and are trying to like sort of stand out and be a little bit more like challenging to the sounds that are being popularized is like, I don't know, it's not appreciated, but I think that it, for the musicians themselves, I think that it's like more rewarding to feel like you're doing something that's personal to you, and it's not just you're doing something because everybody else is looking for that. Sure. You're doing your own thing, which I think is I don't know, I hesitate to use the word noble, but it's like it's more of a pursuit of actualization as a person, I'm not saying that people that do, because I think you are what you eat, right? That concept permeates through everything in life, and this is not a philosophy podcast, but that thought also is very relevant in music, I think, and creativity, because if you expose yourself to like art and creativity that's like maybe, I don't know, in the realm of eccentric and everything, and maybe you're going to do something a little bit more weird, and that isn't really understood by very many people. But then if you have like something like, country, and that's more easy to understand, and that's something that you grew up with, maybe that's the lane you want to go, and that's fine too. I'm not, I guess what I'm saying is like, there's not a right or wrong here. It's just, I feel that it's more valuable to figure out along the way of doing your creativity to just find your thing, and despite the draw, if you can make it as good as you can make it, and it's really what you want to do, that's all that matters. And people will gravitate to it that care about it, that can see the quality in what you're doing. That's, I guess, my thought on that. But the local scene, yeah, I don't know. It's what do you think about the open mics? Like, do you think that there's goods and bads of that, or?
So, well, the open mics in Lexington, there's usually probably one almost every single day of the week, maybe except for Saturday. So I think you can get your feel if you're trying to go to open mics and play. I feel like there is a lot of, I think open mics in general, they're really easy for like singer-songwriter types to go instead of like a rock band or whatever, because you're just usually going up there with you and one other instrument. Sometimes you can have somebody accompany you, or have another person with you. But I think the open mics in Lexington are great though, because you can do whatever you want. And I've met all kinds of people through open mics, and like most of my friends I have now, I met all of them through open mics. Like my newer friends in the past couple of years, you being one of them, Lawrence. We met at open mics.
This is true.
And Kyle, I met Kyle through open mics. James, all those guys, Virgil, all those guys, and a lot of these guys are in the local scene too. And it's great. I love the open mics in Lexington, and I always try to go to at least one a week. I do feel like they can be a little dominated again by country and Americana, but there's a variety of stuff that usually happens at open mics. You'll get everything from rock to just some poetry, and there's also some comedy open mics around town that I've been to, which are cool.
What are the comedy open mics that you've been to, out of curiosity?
There was one that was happening at Twisted Cork, and actually Kyle he went and performed at it, so I went and watched him. Uh, but I can't remember what they were called. Or the guy's name was Ian, and he runs a bunch of them, I think. But I don't know if it's still happening at Twisted Cork. But they do still happen. I've seen like people promote them on social.
I remember they did do comedy separate from music, but then they would also kind of bleed into us sometimes.
Yeah.
But I was thinking about Comedy Off Broadway, going there one day and just checking out, because I know they have open mics there for the comedians. I would love to get a comedian on the show at some point. That's kind of like just a thought I've had. But
Sure, that'd be good.
going back to the lyrics, you've talked about Manchester Orchestra and Radiohead, and these are like your influences when you were growing up. I mean, is that what you've aspired to do stylistically?
Well, I would say, like growing up in Eastern Kentucky, I was exposed to a lot of country. So there's a lot of '90s country that I enjoy. But yeah, once I got older, and I also say that I have an older brother. So in the '90s, he was a teenager listening to all the grunge and the hip hop going on back then. So I was listening to a lot of that stuff, which makes sense because a lot of the material I play and write is '90s influence for sure, or so I've been told. But in terms of writing like lyrical content, or just you're talking about lyrical content?
Yeah, I guess I want to specifically get into like the themes that you explore.
Okay.
Like, because I know you have songs like Faces and Colors, and I wanted to kind of like have you maybe just, if you have the chance, to just explain kind of what those songs are about.
Sure. So both of those songs, they kind of deal with kind of the passing of time, and so Colors I wrote, and I definitely pull from just inspiration in my own life. I think around that time I was working a lot, and then like my niece was born, and it was kind of like all these weird things happening in my life, and the song is kind of about that. Is you turn around and 10 years have gone by, and you're like, what have I been doing? And it's the song really. When I was writing it, it was like I want to convince myself, and that's really when I write. I'm being selfish. I'm not trying to relate to anybody. I feel like I'm just writing about stuff to how I'm feeling, and it's cathartic to write about your feelings and stuff. But it's really about that, just the passing of time and us getting older, and really just slow down and pay attention to the little stuff going on in your life, because you can turn around and it's gone in an instant and you don't realize it. And I think Pink Floyd, their song Time is kind of about that too. I mean, it's not a new concept, but that's, I don't think there's any new concepts in songwriting other than maybe a different perspective. But that's what that song is about. Faces kind of is similar in that it was inspired. I had gone to lunch with like an old friend from high school, and I hadn't seen him in probably 6 or 7 years, and we were like really close, and we actually were roommates at one point in college and after college, and then we kind of lost touch. But I met with him, and it inspired this song, and it's going to be so literal when I tell you. Maybe I shouldn't tell you. Maybe that might ruin it. But well, I'm having a conversation with him, and I'm kind of seeing both of our faces, and I'm like, I've aged a little bit. He's aged a little bit. Honestly, he looked great. He looked like he barely aged at all. I was like, what you been doing, man? You look good. You still look like you're 10 years younger than you are. But it kind of came from that. But then there's 3 sections in that song, and not to get, I guess, into the nitty gritty, but I wanted to focus on people's faces. It's that literal. Like I saw his face. He's kind of aged a little bit. The next verse is about like our faces and how we wear masks in our day-to-day life. And, we go through our days, and we can feel like shit, but a lot of times we're wearing a mask. And if somebody says, how you doing? You're like, hey, I'm good. But no, you're not. You feel like shit. You're just hiding it. And then the third verse of that song is also dealing with faces. And I had a family member that was sick, as my grandpa, and he ended up passing away a little bit after that. But it was basically, I was thinking about, we see these people, I see their faces, and at some point they're going to go away. I'm not going to see them anymore. And that could be, they're going to pass away, or they're just no longer in your life. So that's how those two songs came about. I don't really have a direction for any sort of like lyrical content. A lot of times I'm writing just to get my feelings down on paper and then try to turn it into something. But also, I don't know. I don't really have an agenda, and I'm just writing what feels right and what feels good to me. And if I have an audience of one myself, then great. But if somebody connects with it, then even better.
I love that the Faces, like, that's a banger of a song. Like,
Thanks, man.
I listen to it a lot when I'm driving.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, I do. It's on my morning list. But like it sounds like kind of optimistic. Like it's got a more upbeat kind of vibe to it.
Sure.
Colors was like very serious, I feel like at times.
Yeah. Man.
But you know, they're both serious.
Yeah.
Lyrically, conceptually, you know. So I think that's kind of interesting though that it's like a literal, you know, like you're talking about actual faces.
Mm-hmm.
But that's such a cool concept because I wouldn't have thought exploring like that is like a direct reflection of our like how we're feeling, and like is there a song from one of your favorite bands that like, you know, lyrically was just like this was interesting and that comes to mind? I mean, did you ever look up what it meant, or did you maybe like interpret it a certain way? Or
I feel like most of the time, initially, when I'm attracted to like some lyrical content in a song, it's because I've related to it in a certain way, and it might not even be in the full context of the song. It could be like just a great line. You know, they've said something during this verse, and I'm like, damn, that's good. You know, that's going to stick with me, which I love those. Those are the best. To me, it's great when you get stuff like that. It's just one line that sounds great. But in the greater context of the song, or like the full context of the lyrical content, sometimes it's not even, it can mean something completely different to the writer. One song, I guess, that I really relate to from Radiohead, one of my favorite bands, my number one, is Everything in Its Right Place. And then I like that song so much that I got that tattooed on my arm. So I'm a super fan. It's probably cheesy, but whatever. I like that song and I love the band. But that song, it doesn't have a lot of lyrics, but you can interpret each line kind of in a different way, and that's what I really appreciate about it. And even the line "Everything in Its Right Place," somebody literally asked me this the other day when they saw my tattoo. They were like, "Is that an OCD thing?" And I was like, "Kind of, because I do have OCD, so it does kind of sound OCD, and that's one of the reasons I like it. But also, it can mean, you know, everything in its right place. To me, it sounds like no matter where you're at, what you're doing, what you're working on, you're exactly where you're supposed to be. Even if you feel like you've made a mistake, even if you feel like I shouldn't be doing this, or, you know, I messed up in a relationship or whatever, you're right where you need to be. You know, it's a reflection of what you've done and where you are now. Not to say you don't need to, if you've been a shitty person and you need to work on yourself, that's also where you need to be too. But yeah, that's, I guess, one example I guess I could bring up.
I mean, I guess it makes sense. Like, you know, your stuff is more introspective, it's more existential, and it's like it's more. It's not like celebratory. It's not like, hey, it's not knock knock Mac Miller. You know, it's not like we're just celebrating, having a great time, partying. I mean, there's a place for that. Like, I've talked to Dan and everything, but I think those songs that are more personal are like usually the ones that, I don't know, they're just more, you put more heart into those, for lack of a better word. You put a lot more effort into making them more realized and I guess presented in the best light that you can muster up, you know. Like some other songs, like I feel like I've written some weird sappy crap love songs just for the sake of writing session, and then they're not, I don't really feel attached to those songs. But then there's things I'm going through and I'm like, okay, yeah, this is like, it's very visceral, you know. And people don't always understand it, but that's not the point, right? It's for yourself a lot of times.
Right.
Another curiosity is like, what do you have, like a favorite or a not so favorite performance that you can recall? And I mean, is with you know, whether it's with you and your band or on your own, do you have a recollection of anything that comes to mind there?
Honestly, my favorite performance of Cigarette Trees has been our most recent show at Green Lantern. That was really fun. We had a lot of people come out. It was a great crowd. We were on a stage with a sound guy with lights, which is, I mean, we've definitely played places where we're running our own sound. So it's always great when we have a sound guy and some lights. So that's honestly probably been my favorite gig. And we got to play a lot of new material that we've been working on for a while and that we hadn't really showed to anybody, which we're in the process of trying to get some of it recorded now. But that's probably been my favorite gig. Worst gig or least favorite? Well, least favorite performance, I think anytime I play anywhere, I'm always like, this is the worst thing I've ever done. And that's on me. That's just me beating myself up because I love to do that. But I was in a band years and years ago, and I don't even remember the venue. I don't remember where we were at, but we kind of booked a last minute gig, and I was just playing guitar in this band. And we showed up, a couple hours before, and it was clear that the venue was not, this was not the venue for our music. Because it was definitely a rock band. And they were probably more wanting somebody as a cover band, and we were playing originals. So we got there, and like people were like, there were people there saying stuff like, you guys are too loud. You need to turn the guitars down. And then turn the guitars down. And then somebody's like, play this song. They're just shouting out cover songs that we didn't know how to play. But while we were playing, they were kind of shouting out stuff. I'm like, all right, well, I guess this is what we get for booking a last-minute gig. Also, very appreciative that we got to play there and we got paid and, we got to play music to people. And we did entertain that idea. It was like, we don't know this song, but we will try it if you guys really want to hear it. Not sure how it's going to go. And we did that with a couple of songs and kind of made our way through. But after that gig, it's kind of like, maybe we need to think about booking a last-second gig. Like, what are they really looking for before we do it?
I did when I gigged aggressively, I guess. Like, there is a communication aspect that is lost. A lot of musicians don't always think about that. They're not like, what does this place want? Or what do they want to hear? And, like if you're an original band with original content and you got like a couple covers of the style that you play, then they're like in for a treat, Oh, yeah. They're not gonna hear their favorite fucking whatever. From, shows like Green Lantern, it is kind of interesting that you said that, like, you have to be appreciative of, the fact that there's like, I guess we take for granted, like if we get those little steps, those little, inching our way to like better things as a performer, it is a great opportunity. You have lighting, you have sound, and you guys were like, calling out the sound guy, like, hey, appreciate the sound. Those things matter, I think, in performances, wouldn't you say?
After that gig, somebody's like, yeah, you called out the sound guy. He was doing a great job, but I don't think he wanted you to point him out. He didn't want the spotlight on him.
Right. I mean, but it's also like, it is an indication. Do you feel like it's an indication of the progress of your band, though? Like being able to see that, like, okay, yeah, we've gotten from there, like Zach said, like what you guys used to sound like, but also, like, do you see the progress if you had a graph in front of you, do you see like at least a little bit of an improvement over time?
Sure, yeah. I mean, I think the first gig that me and Zach played, we didn't even have a bass player. And I mean, I'm just speaking for Cigarette Trees. I think me and him both played gigs in other bands that were at pretty bigger venues. I'm not going to say that I've played anywhere notable, but we played at a barbecue place, like on their patio, and we took a PA and his drums and my guitar, and that was it. There was no stage, there was nothing. And I've done that. We do that now all the time. So, but playing somewhere where they have a sound guy and lights is definitely, I guess, a step in the right direction. It feels like you're playing an actual venue and you're not playing in some places like, oh, they got an extra space over there, you guys can set up there, which I'm not going to knock that. That's great. Any place that wants to say, you guys come in and play whatever, I'm going to be all for it. But I guess you could say that going to a venue that has legitimate sound guy and stuff is kind of baby steps in the right direction, I guess, for bigger venues and bigger shows.
Because I mean, that's on the resume now, you know. Like, and I think that you love to see those things, like, and you don't really think about them. I think when you're just rolling, you're just going and going. You know, you're like on to the next practice, on to the next song. You know, and you're not really stopping to like appreciate like the little progress, sort of updates. And I guess the milestones or whatever you want to call it. One other thing is like, you know, reviewing and evaluating performances. I mean, are you super hard? Are you one of those people that's like super hard on yourself and like, oh my God, I fucking fucked up that part? Or are you like, are you finding the balance in the criticism? Are you able to tell yourself like what you did good and bad, or how are you on that front?
Yeah, that's something I know that a lot of people, we're all like our own worst critic. So, a lot of people struggle with that. And yeah, I feel like I've gotten better because you're not really doing yourself any favors by kicking your own ass after a performance. I mean, there might be a part be like, yeah, I messed that part up. Maybe I need to work on that next time. But at a certain point, yeah, you're not doing yourself any favors if you're just continually. And I've gotten better about it. I was really hard on myself in the beginning, like, man, that sucked. You sucked. You don't even need to go back, dude. You embarrassed yourself. And I've had that happen so many times. And even I've heard people say stuff like, oh yeah, you kind of messed that part up or whatever. Very rarely. Most people won't say anything like that or whatever.
Like audience members?
Just people, I don't know, friends. Like I'm trying to think of one particular instance, but I don't know. People have said stuff and I'm like, they knew I messed it up. And then if I brought it up, I'm like, yeah, but it wasn't that bad, you know, whatever. Nobody else probably heard it. I'm like, well, I heard it, so now I should just go drive my car off a cliff, and end it all. But
holy shit, that's kind of funny. One of the first things I heard people tell me when I started playing live was like, we're worst critics, you know. We have to, like, it takes time to get used to your own voice and things like that. And I think that's, I don't know. I guess you just got to get to the point where there's a balancing act, right? Like, it's not like, for me, I feel like it is important to present something of quality. And I think you have that same attitude where you're like, it's got to be tight. And that's why you practice. That's why you're trying to make sure that it's presented in its best light. And when you mess up, you're I don't know. It's not like there's a point when it doesn't help, but then there's also like it needs to be in the back of your mind that like improvement needs to be made on some kind of front. It's not like, you know, human errors. Like, I'm trying to get better about like, okay, if you flub up on a finger or a chord or, you know, a vocal hiccup on a little spot, it's like those are, you know, you got to be accepting of that because that's just human, you know. Yeah. Otherwise, you know, we might as well just be going AI route, which that's a different conversation. We're not talking about that. But the point I'm saying is like, there is beauty in that. Like, it's a human thing, right? I think that I'm becoming personally more accepting of that. That part of live performing, right? Mm-hmm. There's just, I mean, you look at your favorite musicians and they perform, and it almost seems like it's so flawless. I mean, they got like people that are professionally trained in the sound aspect of it, and, you know, that's all they do is like, you know, they don't have their day jobs. You know, they're just musicians full time and performing on, you know, Jimmy Kimmel or, you know, whatever. I know that's like extreme level of success, but that's a different, you know, I think as a small time musicians and people that are trying to like do it for themselves and the people around them, they're forgetting that gap is like, there's a reason for it. It's not, you don't need to, you know, beat yourself up about that aspect. It's more just like accepting that, you know, what you're working with, you know, like you don't have 20, 30 year sound guy, and you don't have, you know, you're working your job and you're doing all that stuff. So it's like, you got to be forgiving, I guess. Yeah, I agree. You got to be forgiving on yourself. You got to learn how to do that. When do you think what's an example of like when it's okay to actually legitimately be like, that was not good and that's not acceptable. We need to like work on that.
I guess if there's something that, if you, especially if somebody records it or you listen back to it or you remember and like, okay, I need to focus on that before the next gig or open mic or whatever. I think that's fine. I think it's good too, like at open mics, if you've got friends there. Because I mean, I've asked you all stuff. I've asked you, like, or Kyle, like, hey, did you, like, I messed that part up. Could you tell? And having people that are honest with you, like, yeah, it sounded fucked up or whatever, is good. But I mean, anytime you have something like that, I think it's good to go and work on it. However, I will say that this is something that I've continually tried to work on because I love to flagellate myself. You know, I love to just kick my own ass. But as I've already said, it's detrimental at a certain point. It's not going to be helpful at all. But I also like to collect things that people have positively said about my performance or music or whatever. Well, like even you say, man, Faces is a banger. I'm like, all right, I'm dropping that one and I'm keeping that one. So if I ever feel like shit, hey man, Lawrence loved Faces, and that's good. Also, people have said, and to me, I don't know, maybe it's my being a IT nerd or whatever, computer nerd. I got to have data to back it up, and I'll start collecting this stuff people have said to me, and I've got a couple things I can go back to, like, wow, I really messed that up, but
The Excel spreadsheet.
yeah, right, yeah, just in my brain. I probably should write them down though. I got a couple things where it's like I really messed that song up. I can go, oh, but yeah, you remember that time Lawrence said this, or you remember that time Eric said, hey man, you need to come to open mic because you're too good not to come. And I'm like, I got those in my back pocket, and I can try to, dig myself out of that hole I'm always putting myself into by beating myself up. But that's what I've been doing. It's helpful. It's helpful.
Yeah, I remember when I started playing, it was like people would say certain things, yeah, and you would kind of hold on to, like, if people said it enough, you're like, okay, now there's something to this. Right. It's not just like,
yeah,
a bias statement from somebody. It was like strange. Okay, and this, again, we're tying back to a thing that was kind of briefly touched on, the audience thing, the importance of an audience. Like, how do you view an audience? Like, what's the importance of them as the feedback? And you're kind of already touching on the subject,
yeah.
But do you have any more thoughts around that?
I think just getting any sort of feedback is always good, whether it's good or bad. I mean, if we look at it as like progress, which is way better than perfection, right? If we're always trying to be, having that, if you're a perfectionist, which I think that you probably are, and most of us musicians are, we want everything to sound perfect. But if you can view it as this is an experiment and this is progress, any sort of negative or positive feedback, I think is good, as long as you're not, but you're going to latch on to the negative, man. That's just what we do. And I've posted stuff on like TikTok, a cover or something, and I've had plenty of TikToks where like, hey man, this sounds good. This sounds great. This is awesome. But then there's one in particular where I knew it wasn't good, and I just threw it up, and some guy commented and was just like, dude, this ain't it. Dude, you don't, this is not it. And I was like, you know what? He's right. I need to take this down. It wasn't very good. But also, I'll never forget that. I'll never forget him saying that.
Haunts us in our dreams.
Right.
It's a nightmare. Yeah. I mean, that's it. I feel like my theory is that the more people I interview, the more this will become more clear that a lot of people share this feeling of like, over criticism. But yeah, like finding the balance. I think that we can be honest we have to afford honesty with ourselves, because if an audience, I feel like an audience, and I've said this in the first solo where I said, I don't always trust the audience necessarily. Sometimes they're a little bit like, I don't know, sympathizing, or they're not telling you like bluntly.
Sure.
And you appreciate the people that tell you, like, it's not this ain't it, chief, like, just like hang up the phone. Like it those kind of drive you also. Like, you can take, I feel like it's important to have both of those voices. Mm-hmm. Not that, you necessarily want to hear the negatives more. I mean, everybody likes to feel good and be validated. But I think having those negative voices is like actually kind of more motivating, I think, at times. in theory,
Yeah.
but not necessarily. I mean, everybody finds their theory and that finds their motivation in different things. But I think that like somebody telling you like, yeah, your shit sucks, dude, and you're like, well, fuck that guy. I'm gonna prove him wrong. I'm gonna play so good that he doesn't even make his head spin. He'll be like, he wouldn't know what good is after that, But like,
Just do it out of spite.
Yeah,
Fuck that guy.
dude,
I'm
there's
gonna
a
play
lot.
this.
there's a lot of like, I think I don't know. I guess it depends on the personality of the person, maybe. But I think that it's general shared feeling. One more thing. We're kind of gone through.
Could I add something real quick?
Of course.
I was just going to say, if you're looking for unbiased feedback, put it on the internet, because people don't care what they say to you on the internet. They hide behind their computers and they will say the worst shit to you possible. They have no shame.
That's so funny. It's very true. It's very true. It's a little playground. It's like people are throwing sand at each other's eyes, like, "Fuck you, Timmy."
Yeah, it can be toxic.
Yes, very quickly. It goes from knocking down your sandcastle to throwing sand in your eyes with the same castle sand that you used. We kind of blasted through a lot of the things that I was wanting to pick your brain about. The last couple of things, I guess, the way I round up the show, unless you have any other thoughts or any other ideas you want to share, is to define creativity. How does Josh define creativity?
It's a broad thing, I guess, to try to describe. I guess when I'm thinking about being creative, it's probably just really self-expression and just getting how you feel out there and doing that in the form of some creative medium. So whether that's art, whether it's poetry, whether it's a song, being able to express how you feel and tell, and honestly, just selfishly get it out of your brain. To me, is creativity. But there's all kinds. I mean, I think anybody can be creative in any aspect. It doesn't have to be in the usual art or music sort of deal. I mean, there's any sort of problem solving. Most of the time, creative. You're an engineer. You're solving crazy problems. You're a doctor. You're figuring out these complex symptoms or whatever. Maybe you're a surgeon. Whatever. All that stuff is creativity. I guess. To me, I guess it's just self-expression through music, art, is how I would describe it for myself.
I love that, man. Is there any other updates in the creative front for you? Like, is there anything you want to plug, your platforms or anything like that? That would be the spot to do it.
Sure. Yeah. So, cigarettetrees.com has all of our streaming links. Last song we put out was at the end of last year. So we're trying to get some other stuff out before the end of the year. This year, I don't have anything for like my solo material just yet, but that's also in the works. I'm probably going to try to do some recording on that soon. But I will plug our show. So we've got a show on November 7th, or is it the 7th or the 6th? I can't remember. Whatever the Friday is. I think it's the 7th. At Girls Burritos, and Cigarette Trees will be playing. Lawrence will be playing. Kyle Zorns will also be doing a set as well. And then, that's the gig that we got coming up. We got one in the works for somewhere in Louisville with Cigarette Trees and a couple other bands. But yeah, you can look me up on TikTok and Instagram. It's under Joshua Back Music. And then again, any Cigarette Tree stuff is at cigarettetrees.com. Yeah,
I hope there will be burritos and girls at this thing.
As the name implies, there should be.
I mean, there's an extra emphasis on the girls, dude. I mean, they almost, the burritos are like an afterthought or something. I don't know. I feel like the burritos are probably going to be the biggest thing over there, unfortunately. All right. Anyways, man, this has been a wonderful little short thing. I mean, any other thoughts or any other?
No, man, I think it's been great. I appreciate it. This has been fun. I just want to say that I want you to get your music out there, because I want to listen to it on streaming, or where I can pull it up and take a listen to it.
And I'm very close to putting something out there. I've been thinking about the things I whine about lyrically, and I don't know if I'm ready to I've been doing a lot of retrospect, and I think that the next solo episode will kind of before I probably should put something out before then. That's going to be months. So I want to probably do something within hopefully the year.
Sure.
I was very close a few times, but I just, I've been, I don't know. I gotta do some evaluating. But yeah, I appreciate, you motivating me to do that.
You gotta let us hear it.
I know. Open mics, dude. I'm always at the OMs. But all right, man. Well, appreciate you coming on, Josh, and have fun with the gig. I'll be seeing you over there at the what is it? The Porch Fest, right, today?
Oh yeah, that is right. I'm playing Porch Fest today at 7:30. Me and Kyle are splitting a gig, and then we're gonna play a couple songs together. But yeah, I forgot about that one. That's today.
And I will be there. I'll be hanging out. That'll be tight.
Hell yeah.
All right, man. Thank you. Thank you to the listeners as well. For listening to our third episode. We will keep going with this format. On the next month's podcast, I will have another guest on, so stay tuned for that. Thank you for listening.